Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We have a lot of people on the line for today's session. We're talking to Rachel Weeks about blind or disabled athletes today. Before we start that, I want to let you know that we are talking about a mobility topic tomorrow. We're talking about crossing intersections. And then Friday, we are doing another program with Jean called Worry Schmurry. And then immediately after that, we're doing our support group. So tune in if you are around. And again, if you're not around, feel free to check it out on YouTube afterwards. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Awesome.
Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we get into your athleticism and your, I guess, energy and interest in sports, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this field and what you're doing now?
The field of athletics, you mean?
Yes.
Or yeah, okay. I should make it sure. Yeah. So my journey as an athlete. I mean, I've always kind of been an athlete, but there was a big window where I kind of stopped being active, and then in 2011, after I had my two children, I realized I wasn't very active. And at that time, my vision had also declined. I think it was down to 11 degrees. I have RP. And so it had just shifted a lot, and I wasn't sure how to get active again. I didn't know anything about visually impaired sports or blind sports. So my first adventure was a half marathon, and my sister was the guinea pig, and she was my first guide. And we had to figure out the best way for her to communicate what I was missing, which was on the periphery. And we first tried doing a handheld tether, and she was jerking me around and pulling me, and it was just quite terrible. And we decided to go into a tether that was on the waist, and it allowed enough space between us. She could call out verbal cues like, we're going up the hill, we're about to go up a curb, but I could feel her, but I could have some independence with her. So we did our first 5K. We did our 10K after that, and then we went into the half marathon, which was a lot of fun. That's 13.1 miles for people that aren't aware of what that is. So it was super cool, and I got hooked. For anybody who's a runner, you probably know that there's a little bit of a high, and I just kept wanting to go. So I did eventually go on to do a marathon. And then I was talking to a good friend of mine, Richard Hunter, who lives out in California, and he had just completed an Ironman. Ironman competition is 2.1 miles, 2.4 mile swim, excuse me, a 112-mile bike, and a 26.2 mile run. And he just done that. He has RP like me. And I was just so intrigued by a blind athlete doing that and figuring out like how to do that and make that an adventure. So the first thing, sorry, Plum is down here trying to talk to me. The first thing that I had to do was get a tandem bicycle. And if any of you have ever been on tandem, it's quite different than a regular bicycle, because when you have to launch two people. You have to coordinate. There's a lot of verbal cues. There's balancing. My balance is a little bit affected, not too much, but it's enough that it can offset my center. And that was probably the toughest thing to get used to, and to also not be in control. So if you're in the back of a tandem, there is no way to control anything back there. You just hold on and you just hope for the best, that your pilot knows what they're doing. And so the second thing I had to get used to was swimming again. I had swam as a young child, but after losing peripheral, it was quite different getting in the pool. I don't know if any of you guys have swam or are swimming now, but taking that tunnel vision and not being able to center in the lane is quite disorienting. I remember the first time I went from the wall to the other wall, I could barely make it, kind of out of shape, but also it scared me to death. So that was a huge hurdle that I had to get through, and continuing to swim and then to take that into open water. And open water, we are tethered together, a little bit longer of a tether than you would run. But it's also very scary because when I get in the water, I lose pretty much most of my vision. I have a little bit of a pinhole that I can maybe see through my goggles. And there's this moment where you think, oh my gosh, my guides left me, I don't have them, and I keep yanking on the tether to make sure they're there. And of course that slows us down and it gets very annoying after a while. I've since gotten better at that, but all of those things were very scary, the run, the bike, and the swim. And I had to get used to that trust, which you guys, if you have a guide dog, you understand that, trusting the guide dog, trusting the cane, trusting someone who's never guided someone. Someone like Maddie obviously knows what she's doing. Somebody just off the street trying to help you, it's a little bit different. So that was the biggest thing of being a blind athlete, is that trust. Transferring that to somebody else and trusting that they'll keep you safe, because being an athlete alone already comes with this edge, but doing that as a blind athlete even more so. So I eventually did go on to do an Ironman. I've done 2. I continue to run and cycle even through COVID quarantine. If you go into my garage, which is behind me, I have a treadmill. You can use a tether to do the treadmill. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there that show you how to do that. I do solo because tethering to the treadmill, I'm still not quite comfortable with that. But there are some people that do that. I have my weight room back there, and I have a stationary bike. So I still remain active during this. I have not made it to the pool. All the pools are closed down. But just something that since 2011 that I've continued to do. It helped with many aspects of being blind. It obviously gives you independence. It obviously gives you self-confidence. It gives you a community. There are many blind athletes out there in the community all over the country, and I've known some international people too. So it's just a really neat way to kind of step out and do some interesting things, and that's what has kept me doing this for many, many years.
Let me ask you a question about running, since that's kind of started. When you started after having vision loss, or rather before you experienced vision loss, were you a runner?
Only because I had to be. So I was forced to do the mile and pee like most of us, and I hated it.
So I guess I'm curious as to why that was the first thing you chose.
I think it was, mostly it's because my sister was going after the goal, and it was the first kind of activity that I thought maybe I could do. I did end up searching on the internet back in 2011 and found a guy out of New Zealand who had a guide runner, and that's how I learned about guide running. So it was kind of like a default. It wasn't like, oh, I really do enjoy running and I want to keep doing that. How do I do it? It was just, oh, it's the first time I've heard of any blind athlete doing anything and just running, so I'm just going to imitate what he did. I'm a cyclist, as you know. That's what I thoroughly enjoy these days.
Yeah, I know you've got a sweet setup there in your garage, don't you?
Yes.
I like that, the sense of community that I think a lot of athletes can enjoy when they get into it. But how long until you really felt that sense of community?
Well, that was instantly. Facebook was starting to take off at that time, and I was starting to put myself out there like, how do you do this? What tether do you use? Which tandem are you getting? And tandems were really hard to come by back then. Now they're much easier to get, but trying to get that first tandem, it was difficult. So they were reaching out. I mean, just huge emails were being sent to me. So I felt like I knew these people. And a lot of us will tell, like when we finally make it to a race and we're like, John, I've known you for 4 years on Facebook and now I finally get to meet you. So it's instant. It's different than other groups, I think, because I have to warm up to other people. But in this group, we're all kind of connected immediately. It's pretty cool.
You spoke briefly about tethering, and I'm not sure everybody understands what that means. You go into detail of what that means for your sports?
Yeah, so in the triathlon world, you have to be tethered, especially when you get up into the Paralympic. So in the run, it can be a waist tether, or it can be a handheld tether. I should have brought them. I don't know if anybody can see on here, but the handheld tether is there's no bungee to it. It's basically what I did is I went to Walmart and got one of those Gold's Gym kind of it's like a strap, and I cut it, and that's what I hold on to. I had a friend of mine who he forgot his tether the day of the New York City Marathon, and he used a tie. So you can use anything, literally. The swim tether, I have it where it is bungee because you are in the water and you want a little bit of give. You can get it, the materials out of like Home Depot or Lowe's. It goes around my thigh, and then there's a little piece of the material that goes from my thigh to my hip, and then it also goes around my hip. So it keeps it all in place, and it doesn't bunch up to your chest or down to your ankles. But it keeps that feel of knowing where your guide is. And there's all these, once you get up into the higher up, there it can only be 1.5 meters and all this stuff, and it's very regulated. But that's what tethering basically means.
Okay, so your guide, you're always connected to the person who's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Person you're tethered to a sighted person?
Yes.
Hey,
I have a question about your guide, actually. You said you started with your sister.
Yeah.
That was out of convenience and interest. And then after that, how did you find your next guide?
Facebook. So there was starting to be like people coming on. The first one I found, she was actually she was on Twitter, and it said guide for the visually impaired. And I'm like, what? Now, who does that? You can actually look her up. She's guided 9 Ironman for various, visually impaired athletes. She's also done Kona, which is our world championship for Ironman. So she was one of my first guides. And then, again, it just started to grow. Team RWB is a group that was, you run for veterans, but a lot of them were willing to give their time as guides as well. So a lot of my guys came from that group in the beginning. I don't even know how many guys I've had. I've got to be getting close to 40 over the course of the years. They're all amazing. And you got to think about the guide. If you're doing, like a sprint, that takes about maybe an hour and 20 minutes. But an Ironman can take up to 17 hours. And these guys are not entering the race. They're not getting the medal. They're completely donating their time to do these things. And a lot of times, maybe up in the Paralympics, they might be getting paid or their way being paid by Team USA. But down at the lower levels, they'll travel all the way to like Arizona, California, whatever, on their own dime, on their own time, on their own athleticism, and doing it just because they want to. It's pretty incredible.
That is really cool. I think I'd like to take a moment and open everybody up and let people ask questions so far. So I'm going to unmute everybody. I'm going to ask that you say your first name first and then ask your question. So. Also, if it seems.
This is Carolyn.
There you go. Hey, Carolyn.
Hi. I'm just checking to see if you've ever participated in the Paralympic Games.
I have not. So I have done 2 Team USA national championships, and I have done a international triathlon, which is right under the Paralympics. So I'm kind of like hanging out there, but not there yet.
Well, in the Sydney, Australia Summer Olympics several years ago, there was a lady named Marla Runyon, and she was legally blind.
I know her.
Good, I think it might.
Yeah,
Marla is inspiring.
Yeah, Marla's great. She is now over the disabled athletes in the Boston Marathon. So she runs that whole show. So anybody who is a wheelchair athlete or a amputee or visually impaired, go through Marla.
Wow, that's neat. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions for Rachel so far? Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody. Oh.
Is running the only sport you run that you do, or do you do anything besides running?
So I do running, I do triathlon, and I do cycling. Right now, my focus is on track cycling. So you have road cycling and track cycling. The road is out on the road, as the name says, and you have a road tandem. And then the track is pretty much think of NASCAR and Daytona and how steep the banks are, and you do a track tandem around that. The first time I looked at it, I couldn't even believe a bike could stay upright on that bank. It's very fast and intense, but it's pretty cool. So that's kind of where my focus is right now. It's been pretty awesome. Scary, especially when you're in the back and you're like tucked in behind your pilot and you're just like, please God, don't let me wreck.
Oh, ouch.
Thank you.
Rachel, excuse me. I'm Patty. How young were you when you started your athletics?
So when I could see, I was horseback riding, did a little bit of cheerleading and dance. But those things were getting pretty hard without my peripheral vision. So there was a big gap where I didn't. So I was, goodness gracious, I was 28 when I started back up. So there was about almost a 10-year window where I wasn't doing anything. But yeah, I was 28. My first Ironman I did for my 30th birthday. So.
Yeah. Wow. I'm
Rachel?
74, and I don't think I'm going to be doing a triathlon at this point.
So there's this guy. He started cycling when he was 40. He has macular degeneration.
Yeah,
started cycling when he was 40, and he's still, I think he's 76, and he's still racing track cycling, and he is pretty much beating guys that are like 40 years younger than him. It's pretty amazing. I love it.
Well, if I had started at that age, I would have been doing really well.
Well, and I think
Hello,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
this is Sue. And when you are running or jogging or walking tethered to a guide person, are you tethered at your waist?
So now I use a handheld tether because I need a little bit more feedback where I'm at. My balance is a little affected. It goes through stages where it's more, and then sometimes it lessens up. As I don't know why it does that. But right now, having that handheld kind of keeps my balance centered. When I do the waist, there's not enough feedback, and it makes me feel like I'm all over the place. So I may go back to the waist tether. It just depends on where I'm at in the progression.
And the person who is guiding you, where is her tether?
So if I'm holding it, they're holding it. If I'm on the waist, they're on the waist.
I understand.
And for 26.2 miles, it gets old after a while. Trust me. You just want to drop it.
Oh, there's no hand switching.
We could. It just depends. So there are some thoughts about like people should switch it up from a mobility standpoint. But when you're racing, people like to keep it on their stronger side, if you will. So a lot of times they do not switch sides.
So if you're right-handed, you really need a right-handed guide.
Yeah, I mean, we've really never had to ask for that specifically. I mean, everybody's kind of adaptable. Like, they'll do whatever side that needs to be done. That's why the waist tether is pretty popular among the marathon runners, because it doesn't really matter. So your handheld are going to be more for your sprint distances, which is like 5K, 3 miles. Your waist tether most people use for long distances, but I wouldn't even be able to do that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is Amy. When
Hey,
you're
Amy.
cycling, hi.
when you're cycling, do you pedal?
Oh yeah. When you go up the hill, where do you think all the weight goes to the back?
Yeah, so you are doing most of the pedaling, or does your guide pedal too?
So yeah, no, it's both of us are pedaling. The guide is just doing the gear shifting up front, and obviously steering. But the pedaling, the way the pedals are, they're connected. There are tandems where they're not connected, so you can cycle at your own pace up front, and the back one will, they can stop, do whatever. I don't recommend it because you lose a lot of power in that. But with the racing tandem, they're together. And if the front is pedaling really fast, the back has to match it. And if they can't match it, the front has to slow down.
Okay, I just was wondering.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Thank you.
Rachel, this is Kathy.
Hey.
Hey. Out of all the sports you do, which one is your favorite?
Definitely cycling. I love it. I've had so much fun. I've done a lot of camps over at the Olympic Training Center, and right beside it is the Garden of the Gods. And we did a lot of training through there, and it was absolutely amazing to be able to cycle through there. And anywhere in Colorado Springs, it's beautiful with the Rockies back there. So I enjoy cycling because of being out and doing all that. But besides that, I just for fun, I'll kayak. I do archery. I'm about to buy my first bow. I love archery, even though I can't see where it's going, and I just do the best I can. And do all those kind of things, rock climbing, all of it. I'm always trying stuff. But definitely cycling is my favorite.
That's good.
I'm not understanding the cycling, honey. Are you tethered to someone when you cycle?
No.
Or are you free?
Yeah. I wish I could bring my tandem in here. Yeah, no. So it's basically just a double bike, and then we're behind.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have the seat up front. It has a post with a seat on it, and then the handlebars for the stoker, which is the back person, is underneath the seat. So I'm basically leaned, right on top of my pilot is what we call them. So there's handlebars for the pilot, seat for the pilot, handlebars underneath the pilot for the stoker, and then a seat for the stoker with two wheels, and it's a long frame.
And are you pedaling, or is lead doing the pedaling?
So the lead sets the pace. But with anything in the blind sport, we're always checking in. If it's too fast, if it's too slow. One thing I did not mention, the guide should be more competitive than their athlete. So they should have a little bit more room to push themselves. So you don't want someone who's trying to keep up with their blind athlete. You want someone who's stronger. That's just a general rule, because it takes a lot of energy to run and guide at the same time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Michael. Rachel, I'm just trying to visualize how this would work, the tethering and so on, with by just walking. Okay, so first of all, how is the tether? Is it a long rope around your waist, and how long is it?
So at the competitive level, I think it has to be like, I'm trying to think, 1.5 feet, I think, is between. Again, like I was saying, I mean, if you get too close, you guys are going to be yinging and yanging, and it's not going to be fun. So you kind of have to play with it to see what feels comfortable for you. What I did with my waist tether is, if you go to any running store, they'll have like a bib number belt, basically, and you can put each one, wear that, and then you can tie, like we had people use shoelaces. So they'll take 2 shoelaces, tie them together, and that gives you an idea of how far apart it is. So you can start with shoelaces for sure. That way it's not too, bulky, and it has some give to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If no one has any more questions, we can keep going here. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody question, just for audio's sake. So you talked a little bit about, I guess, training. I understand you have all sorts of things at home that you train in your garage, at your house. But I'm curious, how far ahead do you have to start training for something like an Ironman?
Oh yeah, Ironman, for someone who's already done one, it's about 6 months. If you've never done one, you would probably do 9 to 12 months. Bringing it back to today, imagine that you have a April or May Ironman and this COVID thing came through and you have already put 8 months of training into it. Again, for the Paralympians, all my friends that are at the Olympic Training Center, they have been training almost 3 years. And now a year later, they're going to have to keep training because they're pushed back to 2021. So there's a lot of training involved in something like that. One of the reasons why I pulled back from Ironman and marathon is because I do have 2 middle schoolers now, and being out there and training that much of a load was too much. So I went down into more of the quicker distances because I can do like a 30, 45 hour workout in the morning and in the evening, and I get all the work I need, and I can still be a mother. And a lot of these athletes, they're working full time, they're doing that, and on top of that, if you're visually impaired, trying to find guides to train with, trying to find rides to the pool or wherever, whatever your sport is. We have blind rowers right here in Nathan Benderson in Sarasota. We've had the Paralympic rowers come through. That's even tougher because you can row at home if you have a rower, obviously. But to get actual time in the boat would, be transportation, finding 3 other people to row with and all of that. So it's not easy for sure.
Yeah, I would understand it takes some coordinating to get all of that together.
Yeah. And if you're an Ironman athlete and you're a blind Ironman athlete, imagine all the coordination of the pilots. And a lot of times I would, train with a running guide, and then I would switch to a different pilot for my, tandem, and then I would, swim by myself in the pool, or I would have somebody I swim with out in the open water. Just to train for my first one, I think I had about 6 guides that I, would cycle through because they all had their schedules too. And some of them were already training for their own races. So they just weren't at my beck and call. So I had to be really resourceful. And when I was in Colombia, trying to find that many people, it was tough because a lot of them had never guided an athlete before. And so I had to teach them how to do it. And of course, their confidence is a little low and they're freaked out. One of my favorite guides, I just love him, he's up in Greenville, and we met at the pool, and he had found me online, and he was sitting there, and I was explaining everything, and I was a pretty seasoned athlete at that point. I had already done an Ironman, and I knew what I was doing, so I felt pretty comfortable. And all of a sudden, I felt him, and I said, "Are you shaking?" He goes, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous." And I was like, wow. So he had to get over that, and I had to, train them. So a lot of times, I have to stop and kind of back up and not get my workout in and just train these guides. And there have been some that I've gotten on the back of the tandem with, and it was a one and done. Like, I would never get back on there with them again. It hasn't happened often. It was only like 1 or 2 times, but that's also, kind of a scary thing. That trust thing I was talking about in the beginning. But it's not any easier if it's your relative. And as I mentioned before, my sister was my first one, and I kind of hinted at, we didn't get along very well in the run in the beginning. We were like crabbing at each other. It was even more so when we got on the tandem, and my younger sister is the pilot. She's in charge, and here's the older sister in the back trying to tell her what to do. It didn't work out very well. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I have 2 sisters, and I don't think I would want either one of them to be.
Well, we have in the community, I mentioned the girl that had guided 9 Ironman. She's married, and her husband also guides, and she got on the back of the tandem for the first time, and he was the pilot. And she said she would never do it again because she's always been in the front. So it was pretty funny. I was glad she did that, and it just proved that it's not easy to be back there. It's not easy to be up front either, but definitely not easy to be in the back.
Yeah, when you were speaking, I wrote down trust like 5 times. I feel like that is the biggest element of all of this. Being an athlete, a blind athlete, or visually impaired athlete, because you have to trust other people's instincts and decisions.
I think that's just our journey in general. Especially, if you, I can't speak for being born with, being blind, but I know as someone who's losing, I just have to depend more and more. And that was the battle. But once I started becoming an athlete, a blind athlete, my adjustment to blindness was much quicker at that point. I wasn't doing very well prior to that. And then once I started to, get into this community, accomplish these goals, my trust was a lot easier. And eventually I went on to get a guide dog, and I still use my cane and travel and all of those things. And now I have no problem calling up a friend, hey, you mind running me to the grocery store? Where before I was just like not wanting to depend on anybody. But if somebody's going to, volunteer 17 hours of pain for you, then going to the grocery store is not that big a deal.
I like that a lot. I think a sense of community is one of the biggest things for, we find for our classes, the adjustment to vision loss courses. It's like, yeah, we'll teach you all of these awesome things and introduce you to cool tools, but the best part of that class is that you're in a room with peers.
Yeah.
So, something to be said.
Yeah, it's huge. I know my first experience with a blind group, I was online. I think it was a Yahoo group. It was back when those were pretty popular, and I was diagnosed in 2002. So it would have been 04, 05. And unfortunately, they were just very bitter. It was very political. And we hadn't even gotten to this political climate. So it was much better than it is today, but it was still pretty negative. And a lot of whining and a lot of, this county's not doing this and that. And I understand there are things going on that it's not fair to us. But when you're new to blindness and that's all you hear, it was very discouraging. So when I got connected with the blind athletes and how positive they were, and they were getting out there and their endorphins are flying and they're happy and they want to help others and they want to get together and they want to go and do all this stuff and travel, it's huge. It's a totally different mindset. So, I mean, as anybody, we have to surround ourselves with the people that we want to be like. And, just having that blind athlete community just really is the reason I am where I am today, for sure.
I guess I'm thinking about a lot of our clients who might be older or might have a few different disabilities going on. And I'd be curious on what your suggestion would be for if they wanted to become more active or to become, pick something up or find a new sport or interest like that.
Right. So there's this awesome group that I've been a part of since day one, is the United States Association of Blind Athletes. Right now, because of what's going on, there's this huge push for getting blind and visually impaired people active in their homes. So we have a lot of the Paralympians that don't have anything to do right now. I mean, they're training still, but they still have a lot to do, that are going on there and doing yoga, and they're doing Pilates, and everything's descriptive. So that's really good for people who have no vision, so they know what they're doing if they're not familiar with Pilates or yoga. So if you're on Facebook, that's one way to do it. You can also email them through their website. I love that they're doing that, because when you're stuck at home and then, think about this too. Our guides really, if we're truly social distancing, we shouldn't be running with our guides. So all of us are in that same boat. And so I think they're doing one a week. But it's the United States Association of Blind Athletes, and it's for anybody. So it's really good adaptive, things that they're trying to come up with and do in your home.
I love that. I think that's really useful for the time we're in right now, is, we might have to figure out how to do stuff at our house.
Right.
And having it all on one page, having it be descriptive, it would help us avoid searching online.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a really good resource, and they're doing a great job of making sure we all have that. And trying to think, I know my coach, so he's a lifting coach as well. He's going to be doing some lifting exercises that are descriptive. He hasn't released them yet, but he's been working on that. So I know a lot of people are starting to put some more descriptive training out there for you.
Yeah, and you just made me think of something, actually. I've had a lot of clients who went through, they go to a YMCA, and maybe they've been going to it forever, but the YMCA has some sort of more chair classes too. I've had a lot of clients who are successful at those kind of classes. Like you said, balance can be a major issue with vision loss, so maybe start like that.
I think probably the most frustrated I've ever been was when I started picking up yoga, and I did it, audio, and I couldn't figure out what the heck to do. I didn't know these fancy terms, and I'm trying to keep up, and I halfway through I started crying because I was just so frustrated. So the descriptive and the chair and having that is huge. It makes it so much easier. I know that I tried to do a dance class, and it was just terrible. But if you have someone who is sensitive to people that are visually impaired, you can totally do it. I have a friend who's deafblind, and he's a Zumba instructor, and he's amazing, and people love him because he is so descriptive. So that it's helpful for people who don't even have a visual impairment, just don't know what they're doing, and they need all the help they can get.
I actually think Zumba could be kind of good too, because once you learn the basic moves, they often shout it out, right?
Yeah.
As you go.
Yeah.
I haven't done Zumba in so long.
I know. We had the youth group at my daughter's church. They did one. She's an instructor. You might be able to find something that's already online for people that are visually impaired. I have to ask Patrick if he's got anything out there.
Cool. I think it sounds like you just sort of decided that one day you were going to try this. And I think that's probably going to ring true to a lot of other people on this call. I've been thinking about doing that. And then one day you just decide you're going to give it a try.
Yeah. No time like the present. We all got a lot of time on our hands.
And I think a lot of people might even start with things like physical therapy moves. So some strength training that you can do at home in the comfort of your own place right now. That might be where we're at.
Right. But I would encourage, because just like anybody who's starting, having a partner or having a group that holds you accountable is huge. So for me, I get up every day, except this week I've not been feeling very good, but most of the time I'm up in the morning and I'm up in the evening doing my workout. But I've been doing this since 2011. In the beginning though, I needed that personal trainer. I needed someone to stay with me. I needed my guide to show up, and I had to get off the door and do it even though I didn't want to. Having that meeting time saying, hey, we're going to sit down and we're going to do this together, even if it's over Zoom, is huge. And now that we're all pro at Zoom now, you can have that, person that's, in a different state, and you guys can sit down and do your yoga together, or do your Pilates, or your 50 sit-ups. I have a guy he's a triathlete. I think every day he puts out a plank challenge or a squat challenge or whatnot. And they're huge. Just to do those few things, it makes a big difference during the day.
Rachel, what time do you start your training or whatever exercise you're going to do? What
time I do it during the day?
Yes.
Well, when I was going to a physical place to work, I got up every morning at 4. And I was in the gym by 5, and then at home by 6. And then I would do something in the evening as well. Now I usually work a little bit, and then I work out at 10, and then I do my evening workout around 6 or 7. So,
okay.
Yeah,
I agree. Sometimes having that partner to kind of help motivate you, especially when you're getting started.
Yes. Yes, because I know my dad picks me up, and finding someone to get up at 4 in the morning is pretty rare. So when my dad said he would do it, I was like, okay. But it's kind of where I get it from. The discipline is that he's been doing this since he was 18. He's 64 now. still worked out like a beast. And, you know, he's knocking on my door at 4:15 and I got to get up and I got to go, even though I would have totally kept sleeping. And as disciplined as I have no problem, you know, admitting that, because, you know, you just get tired some days, especially when you're a mom and working full time and all of that catches up. But it's just having that partner, and also, like, for me, having that race. So I know a lot of the Paralympians and the Ironman athletes that I'm friends with on Facebook, they're really struggling right now because they have no race to look forward to. And they're like, I'm just sitting on the couch doing nothing, and I don't even know who I am anymore. You know, their identity is completely crushed. So yeah, having that something to that 5K, that first 5K, or that accountability partner, or that meeting, or that group, definitely keeps you going.
Yeah,
Rachel?
and I know that there are a lot of apps too, because I remember when I was, you know, wanting to start running, and I downloaded an app. Lee, do you remember the name of that app that I used when I was wanting to train for a 5K? I think I remember telling you about it.
Couch to 5K.
Maybe that is it, Maddie. But
that's a good one.
Yeah, that was good for me.
Yeah, I use Run with Hal.
What's the name of it?
Run with Hal, Hal. He is awesome. His son was a Olympic runner. He was a Boston marathoner and everything, and I've used him since day one, and it's free. You can obviously go to the, you know, charge you more and give you more type thing, but it's free. Okay. I haven't figured out how accessible it is, because like what it tells me what to run is in big bold, but all the other stuff I have to like literally take a picture of it and then zoom in to see what it says. So it's not super accessible, but it's great. Down Dog is a yoga app, and I believe it's free right now. It's pretty descriptive. It's pretty good. If you have vision, you can see the lady actually doing the movements too. So that one's pretty good. Fit Plan is another one that's a really good app. That one, I think they do charge you. But it's got like some of the lead people in the industry, and you can choose, you know, I just want to do 1 day a week, or I want to do 6 days a week, you know, whatever your level is. It was, as far as accessibility, I didn't get in there too much to see what it is. I think that's the biggest issue that all the athletes will tell you, because even like with my trainer, I have an app that goes with my Wahoo. It's not accessible at all, and we've been trying to work with that company to make it. So it's just a matter of doing that. But I think at USADA, which I mentioned, the United States Association of Blind Athletes, they have a list of apps that are accessible on there. Oh, so that should be helpful. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
This is Pam.
Hey.
When you get to go back to your daily job, is it what do you, are you in an office, or are you outside, you know, staying active, or what?
So I now work with Southeastern Guide Dogs. I've been there almost 6 months. It's hard to believe that. Wow. And I have an office, and I don't know if you guys have been on the campus before, but it's huge. So Plum and I do about 2 walks a day just to stay active. But prior to COVID, we were about to open up our student center, athletic center. So it has all this accessible equipment in there for our, you know, soon-to-be graduates. Also, our graduates that live in the area can come on campus and work out there as well, because it's smaller, it's more contained. I don't know if any of you've ever been into a gym, but it's hard to navigate. It really is. I've tried to take Plum in there, but they're throwing weights around, and there was one incident where I was just terrified that the guy was going to accidentally drop it on Plum. So I stopped taking her, and then using the cane, it was difficult. So that's why I just built my own gym in my garage, and I like that much better. But for our graduates to come on campus and have the smaller gym is really nice. The best gym that I can recommend, if it's even near you, is that 24-hour fitness, because it's quiet. There's not a lot of people in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to hear you where you're at and everything. I had lost
Yeah,
you.
I like it there.
Good.
I suppose
You're definitely motivating me.
Oh, I need to motivate myself. I don't know what I have going on, but it's some kind of like head cold thing. It's not the Rona, I promise, but I'm still not feeling well. And I'm just like, okay, you're talking about being active and you haven't done crap today, Rachel.
You have to listen to your body too, Rachel.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I want to open it up to others to ask questions, so I'm going to unmute everybody. Again, if there's a lot of weird background noise, I will mute you again.
Rachel, this is Carolyn.
Hey.
And some time ago, we had spoken on the phone, I think when you were with the Lighthouse or the Department of Blind Services, I forget.
Yeah.
But you had talked about being a writer. And I would be curious what kind of writing you do and if you've had anything published.
I have not. I did write a Facebook post and they turned it into a blog.
There you go. It worked.
So that happened 2 weeks ago. You know, it's funny you say that because I was sitting there and I've done every project in my house and I'm running out of stuff to do. And I'm getting quite bored. And I was like, maybe you should write. And that was yesterday. And so now you're saying that to me. And maybe that's another nudge I need in the right direction. No pun intended.
That's how it happens, though. That's how it happens. Mm-hmm.
Hi, it's Lee. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good.
You know, I'm a runner too, and I am getting a little stir crazy, but I'm thinking about doing my first virtual run. So
yeah,
a lot of them right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think Nathan Benderson is doing a virtual run series, and it came through on my email, and I wasn't really sure how that worked. Do you know, like, you have to like post your time on a Garmin watch, or what do they? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I never did it. So they don't really give you too much information until you pay. It looks like you can do it. They have a special app that you use, and you can either do it on your Apple Watch or your smartphone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you have a certain amount of time. Yeah, like yeah.
Huh.
3 weeks or
That's
whatever.
interesting. Yeah. I know there's been a lot of stories on the news about, you know, the little kid that ran a marathon in his backyard to raise money. And there was a guy overseas that ran a marathon literally on his porch in place. I'm not that disciplined. You won't see me doing that.
I need scenery.
Yeah, I can't do it on a treadmill.
No.
It's not fun. I can barely get through a mile on a treadmill. I'm glad I'm not training for heavy mileage right now.
Yeah. I like being outdoors.
Me too. So how many people have been active during this time? I'm curious.
I have.
Me. I've done a lot of yard work too.
We're all gonna have the best looking yards after this.
Yeah, I think it's important to try to do something.
Yeah, it was interesting. About 2 weeks into it, it was like the first time I really kind of felt down. I had kicked that to the curb a long time ago, but as any kind of issue like this is going to push down on your weaknesses. And I was like, I am not going back to that. I'm not going to go into that trap again. And that's when I, went out for a walk or whatnot. Plum and I just went and walked. But it's important to make sure, because I know some of you probably read some of the articles that are out there. Now we're concerned about the mental health, the depression, the anxiety. Even people that are not living in that can get sucked into it because we're in a different way of living. We're meant to be social at some level, whether, at work or whatnot. We're used to some kind of socialization. So taking that away and being isolated, a lot of us as visually impaired already know what that feels like. So I found myself struggling with that, but it has been my athletics that have kept me on an even keel and kind of said, time out, let's make sure we don't, get into that space again. So I had to kind of come to Jesus moment for me. And if any of you guys are struggling with that, I mean, a simple yoga exercise, a vinyasa flow that you can look up will help get everything worked out and keeping those endorphins moving. So you can do that right in your home.
Sometimes that is a really tall order to get yourself to even just do some stretching. But just like we were talking about with community, I've found that I have, from the roller skating that I do, we're all doing workouts together on Zoom.
Yes.
Even if I only work out twice a week with these people, it's better than doing nothing.
Right.
So using the resources you have right now, like Zoom, like, FaceTime or whatever, can really help with those things.
Yes, my friends and I are using Zoom also. And just to kind of chat and just laugh and, just makes us feel better.
I was just going to put my 2 cents worth in on that. Having a little bit of sunshine every day is good for everybody. Even if you feel like you're unstable, scared, you don't want to walk, just go outside in a lawn chair and sit in 15, 20 minutes of good sunshine. And I'm blessed enough to have a swing my husband made for me, and I can go out under there and swing. I'm afraid I'm not a very good example of an exerciser. For me, going from bed to bathroom to office twice a day, gosh, that's a lot of walking. Okay, I made 20 steps today. No, I mean, so I have to make myself do anything. So I'm just one of those people that I'm really, truly impressed by what you and Latricia and Lee and all of you are keeping yourselves, Maddie, you're keeping yourselves fit in unique ways. But please don't think because you don't have much vision, just do. I remember, Maddie, we learned good laughing session.
Yes.
That was tiring. I mean, you used abdominals to do. We did laugh yoga for.
I love that.
YouTube and watch it every day.
Rachel, you need to tune in. I believe you said it was Friday for Worry Schmurry.
Friday is Worry Schmurry with Jean. I don't know what that's to entail, but yeah, that's the same woman who did the laugh yoga.
Laugh yoga is awesome. And dude, I was laughing so hard I couldn't even contain myself, and they just let me go. It was awesome. I did it up in Buffalo, New York. I was up there with the kids doing it. It was cool.
They probably loved you then.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your insight. I'm glad that so many people, like 20 people on the line. There we go.
There. Yeah, I couldn't hear what you said.
I think we had like 20 people on the line, so I knew, people are always curious about athleticism and having a visual impairment. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, if you guys think about a way to maybe connect outside of these meetings and do something together, that would be great. Check out that website. Just know that there's a ton of us out there. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're young, very wise. We're all active. We're all out there doing something, and there's no time like the present to make sure that's a priority.
I love that. Everybody's goals and abilities might be different, but you can always try something new or, push towards.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to stay on the line if anybody wants to share your email address to get the information about next week. you can stay on. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Rachel, for taking time out of your schedule.
Yay, thank you.